Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Logitech Spotlight Presentation Remote. Now this is not an inexpensive device, it's about $130, but I think it might accomplish some things that people who do presentations for a living might wish to accomplish, which is why I found it interesting enough for us to take a look at here on the channel. Now this came in free of charge through the Amazon Vine program. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. So let's take a look and see what we've got for hardware here. This is a really nicely constructed device from a build quality standpoint. It's all aluminum, but you do have a good amount of antenna area here so that you can get a decent signal back to your computer. So they rate this as being about 100-foot range, and I would assume that would be using its included wireless dongle here, but you can also attach it up via Bluetooth if you want. So you have some different connectivity options, but you definitely want to test this before you actually do your presentation when you rehearse to make sure that you don't lose signal in the middle of your presentation. But if your computer is close to you on stage and you have the dongle hooked up, I think you'll do pretty well. Also underneath here is a USB Type-C port for charging, and they do say that you can charge this thing in about a minute or two and have about 3 hours worth of usage as a result of that charge. It's a very low-powered device. The included USB charging cable just pops right in there. I did try a few other USB Type-C cables, but you probably want one with a long enough molding on it so that you don't have a really hard time getting it in and out. So as it is, you're already tugging on the cable here that it comes with at a part that I don't really feel comfortable tugging at. So I'm not sure how long the cable will last, but any USB-C cable will work as long as it fits in there and you can get it out afterwards. And of course, you can just plug it into your computer to charge it. I always recommend, of course, fully charging anything the night before a big presentation, but if you're in a pinch and you forgot, you can do that very easily. There are a couple of buttons on the top here, which I'll show you more of in a second, but this is your next slide button. You've got a back button here, and this is the spotlight button that involves some of the gyroscopic controls that you can do with it. So let's take a look now and see how the software works and see how you can control things on screen with it. All right, so we got everything hooked up and operating. I did opt to connect my device up to the Mac with the dongle versus Bluetooth. Now this also works on Windows, and the software configuration you're going to see here is the same on that platform. It also works with PowerPoint on both platforms, Keynote on the Mac, PDFs, Google Docs, Prezi. I think just about any presentation software should be compatible with this. So let's start in with the software configuration, and then I'll show you what some of those things do on screen. So there is a timer that you can set, which is helpful. So if you've got a 30-minute presentation, for example, you can just set it here. You can also make a custom time down here as well if you want to set up something more specific. And what it will do is when you're getting close to the end of your time, you'll feel the controller start to vibrate. And then when you're at the time, it'll vibrate more. So you get a little bit of vibration haptic feedback here built into this thing to let you know when you're getting close to the end of your appointed hour. There's also a number of pointer options. And right now I have all of them enabled. And let me show you what you can do here. And this works whether you're on the computer desktop or in the middle of a presentation. So if I hold down the button here, you can see now that it's magnifying a portion of the screen. And I'll switch back over here so you can get a better look at it. It's not the smoothest animation on lower end hardware. I'm running here with the new MacBook, which is running with one of those Core M low-powered processors, and it doesn't feel as smooth in its animation as Keynote feels on here when I'm doing a presentation, but it's good enough to get things done. And you can see, though, that we have some other options here. So we can also do magnify, which we were doing, highlighting, or just a plain circle. Now, if you have all those modes selected, you can change them just by double tapping that button at the top here. So right now we're still in the magnification mode, but if I want to do something different here, I can just double tap, and now I've got that circle mode up. I can double tap it again here, and now I have spotlight mode. And what this does is exactly what it sounds like. It dims the rest of your screen, but it highlights the portion that the circle is centered over. And in all of these modes, you can change how large the circle is through the settings here. But what's also cool, let me switch back to the circle here, is that this works like a mouse, as you can see. So my mouse pointer here is being moved around along with this circle, and I can center it, for example, maybe on the pointer option here. I can click on it, and it will work just like a mouse does. So basically, your mouse pointer stops wherever you drop it, and you can then change things just by clicking the button. So if you are trying to load up a video or something in the middle of a presentation, you do have some rudimentary mouse pointing capability here that you can do from a distance. And because this is a gyroscope, it doesn't require any kind of sensor bar or anything. It just kind of works like a mouse does. Not perfect. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but it does give you some control that you might have been lacking before when you were up on stage. And you can also do some custom controls as well. So for example, right now I have it configured to control the volume when I hold down the next button, but I could also also have it make the screen go blank or have it become a scroll wheel, or I can even do a custom keystroke when I hold down the next button, so that if I've got some special effects like fireworks or something that I want to fire off and I've got an application listening for a particular keystroke, I can have that keystroke executed from the remote by holding down the button. So you've got some flexibility with that. Let's see how it all comes together though and pull up a Keynote presentation. All right, so I've got my Mac here running with a Keynote presentation. I'm going to click on the play button here to get everything started. Now you'll notice that my Mac goes into presenter mode, which is a function of Keynote. I believe PowerPoint has a similar feature also. So there is some redundancy to the timer that they have on this, because this overlay here is not from Keynote, but it is from the Spotlight software that powers the controller here. And I don't believe I can resize this either, so it just kind of sits on top of your presenter display. Now on my main display, I've got the presentation like it normally would run, so that's a good thing. And then when I click the next button to go over to the next slide is when that timer will begin ticking on the timer for the Spotlight controller. So I can get rid of the timer if I want, but I really can't resize it. So it'd be nice to be able to resize that as I'm working my way through the slideshow here. Now I can, of course, go over to my remote here and hit the back button to go back a slide, or hit the plus button here to go forward a slide. And what I can also do here, because I have a video on screen, is I can hit that Spotlight mode now, go over to where that link is, click the button here with my remote, and pull up that video that I wanted to reference the audio to. And then I can take the remote again, go back down here to Keynote, and resume my presentation. It's a little tricky to get some of the finer movements down here with this, but it does seem to work pretty well as advertised. And I think for a lot of presenters that want a very simple way of getting mouse control, this finally accomplishes it without having to do something like this and having a big keyboard on screen or running back to your computer. But you do have to practice a little bit just to get used to what it's like to move a two-dimensional mouse in a three-dimensional space. But it does seem to be working pretty well as I run through it here. And then I can, of course, go into Spotlight mode here, and you can see how that works. So it works pretty decently. It's not bad. It certainly accomplishes what they promise it will, and I think it's a little nicer and fancier perhaps than a laser pointer might be. It doesn't seem to be impacting the performance of my presentation as I'm giving it, although I did find that magnification one is a little sluggish on lower end hardware here. So if I go back over to that, you can see it's just not very fast in how the magnification component works. Hopefully they can optimize that a little bit, but right now it feels a little bit sluggish to me, but I don't know if my audience would really care if I'm actually able to point out something better than I could before. So I'd like to see a little bit of additional software optimization to this. It is a bit pricey, but I think they know that the people who want something like this are willing to pay a premium price for it, and at least the build quality on it is decent. It really feels like a very comfortable remote. It's got decent battery life. It charges very quickly. It does pretty doable job here of moving the mouse around on screen, which I felt was pretty useful. So I think for all those things, especially for professional presenters that want something reliable from a company that they can trust, I think this might be something worth considering. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.